Hi and welcome, I'm MrsCuteFelts, and in today's tutorial you are going to learn how to needle felt Nutcracker Christmas cards. It's fun and easy project, but looks very effective. As always, for 2D needle felting projects I suggest using foam or brush mat, whichever you prefer. For the needles I'm going to use 38, 40 and 42 triangles for the most part. Multi-needle tools can be handy as they speed up the process, so if you have one, please grab it. And of course scissors, they are always useful. Overall, the shapes of the Nutcracker are pretty simple. I think that it's very important to transfer the outline of the face, outline of the hat, and also outlines of the body onto the piece of the fabric you are using as the background. Of course, you can draw directly onto the fabric if you are talented in drawing, but if you are like me, I would suggest to first design your Nutcracker on a piece of paper, and you can also use my template that you are now seeing on the screen. Check the description box of this video by clicking on See More next to the title, and also the pinned comment in the comment section. There you will find a link to my Etsy shop where you can get this template for a very symbolic price. It's a very simple design that you can scale up or down to change the size, and also you can add more details or take something away to personalize your Nutcracker. I'm using Clover iron-on heat transfer pencil to transfer my design onto the felt sheet I'm using as a background. When I have outlined everything, I will just turn it over so the pencil is facing the felt sheet and iron over it using medium heat. You can get it from Amazon. I will leave a link in the description box and also in the pinned comment, because this is absolutely amazing tool. Here you can see how well it's transferred after the ironing. The lines are super crisp and look very nice, and the fun thing is that you can iron over the same design more than once. Yes, the lines will get lighter and lighter with every transfer, but this could be a great solution in case you're using pastel colors or something very bright, because then you don't have to worry about bright, crisp red lines peeking through the wool. I'm going to tell you more about the wool you can use in this project as well as the cards a little bit later on in the video. We are going to start by filling in the base shapes. Here I have classic Christmas red wool batting. Fibers are going in all different directions, and I'm taking small amount of it and laying straight onto the hat. This design has a lot of straight edges, and that can sometimes be a challenge. To overcome this, I always try to focus on these lines first before moving on to the general shapes and filling the center of them. Here, for example, I'm very focused on the left side of the hat. Stretching the wool sometimes helps to enhance the straight lines, and remember that you can always fold over all of the fluff to create straight edge again. Sometimes you will see me pulling the wool using my needle to guide it and also help with straight lines, but please be careful if you're new to needle felting. Make sure that you are not pulling it with force. It should be very light tug. To make this video a little bit shorter, I will speed up some of the parts, but I promise to tell you all the important details about the project. As you may have already noticed, I'm sticking with classic Christmas colors throughout this tutorial. However, there are no strict rules, and I'm sure that you can find something in your existing wool collection and you don't need to purchase anything new for this project, because it really takes small amounts of wool to create these tiny wool paintings. Later on, I will show you a couple of designs I have created in different color schemes. I think that's the fun of this project, that you can use the same template and create completely different nutcrackers. Now you will see me adding a couple of pieces of wool to the hat. I'm always folding it over so I have a straight edge, and then we will move on to filling the face. So the face is shaped as a circle except for the top part, so we will try to mimic that with our wool. Our goal here would be to create a flat disc before we start to needle felt it down in approximately the same size as the circle we have in our design. Here you can see that I took some of the wool off because I had a bit too much. And again, I'm trying to align it precisely, and we are starting with the lower part of the face because here the shape is very rounded. I'm focusing on the outline first and then moving towards the center. Now we have reached the forehead, and I don't want to cover the hat that we previously felted. So what I'm doing now is lightly pulling the fiber to the side to create straight line, going right next to the line that we previously created. And do not worry about the bulk that's left. You can always pull it off just like I did. Or if it's hard to pull, you can use your scissors and simply cut it off. I'm always trying to cut a little bit away from the fabric. This way I will have some of the fluff still left and I can spread it out on the surface and cover all of the bare spots that I still have. Now I have established the base shape and I will add a little bit more wool where necessary. You can do the same, and I just wanted to quickly address the fact that yes, we covered all of the facial features, but don't worry about it. I will show you a little trick later on how you can use the same template that we used before to add the facial features back so you don't have to freehand them. Yes, of course, you could add the base layer leaving the facial features bare. However, I think that this method, covering the whole shape, gives you way neater end result. So for the jacket, we have 3 separate shapes, 2 hands and the body. I will fill each of them separately, starting with the body shape, but you can fill all of them together. I just find it easier to follow the shapes, working on them like this. I again folded my wool to make sure that I have a straight line here, and I'm trying not to cover the chin, so my face shape stays rounded. And we have a visitor. Mango wanted to say hi to everyone and quickly bake a few Christmas cookies. To keep the line on the bottom of the image crisp, I'm simply cutting off the excess wool. Then I'm taking my needle and going over the section once again to make sure that it's very well defined. Now let's move to the hands. I have a little bit different approach here. I will not fill the whole shape with the dark green. Later on we will add some gold, or actually it's going to be warm orange, but it's supposed to illustrate gold. So we will add a little bit of gold detailing on the shoulders. So I don't want to fill this section with the dark green, simply to avoid extra bulk and possibly some dark green fibers peeking through the oranges. That's why we are leaving the shoulders out this time. Here I'm taking tiny amount of black wool and I have rolled it between my fingers to make it easier to control, and I will use it to redefine the line between the hand and the body because we have lost it a bit. You can also use a different color if you want to add some interest to your image. I decided to go with the black this time. When I have repeated the whole process for the other hand, it's time to work on the shoulder pieces. What I'm trying to do here is to take 2 pieces of wool that are in similar size from the beginning. This will help you to keep both sides of your image symmetrical. Rolling these pieces between my fingers a tiny bit before adding them to my wool painting helps me to create rounded and puffy shapes. To add the little gold buttons to the head, I'm using a similar technique. I'm taking a small amount of this warm yellow color and I'm rolling it between my fingers to create a small ball. Then I align it with the outline on my image, double checking if it's in the same level as the one I have already felted down. And then I'm taking a single needle and felting everything down. On the left side, I will try to keep the line straight so I do not cover the head, but on the right side, I will leverage the fact that I rolled this wool in a ball and it is going to guide me and create a rounded shape naturally. Now usually they have a little chain or decoration hanging down here, but we have covered it with wool. So to get back the exact placement, if you do not want to freehand it, you can use this little trick. I'm using the template we previously used to transfer the image to the felt sheet, and I'm cutting out the top part of the hat above the decoration so we can get ourselves this guide that can be easily placed onto our image and we know exact placement of the little chain or whatever you want to call this decoration. Now I'm taking the yellow that we used before for the buttons and the shoulder pieces. I'm rolling it between my fingers quite a bit to create something similar to a strand of yarn. Now I will carefully align it with my guide and felt it down. As always, you can simply remove the excess ends and add more of the fiber if you feel like this line isn't defined enough. Now let's needle felt his charming face. Of course, you can freehand all of his facial features, but as we already started cutting our template, we might as well keep doing that. So first, I'm folding my template in half and I'm trying to be as precise as possible when doing this. And then I'm taking my scissors. I do suggest you use smaller scissors for this, and I'm cutting out the nose and the mouth first. Here's what you get when you're done. I also decided to cut off the hat because this will help me to align everything more precisely. Now you have to carefully place it onto your image, and then you will have two options how to proceed. I'm now showing you the first one. I'm taking the pencil and simply drawing all of the shapes through the holes that I have cut out. I chose to use red pencil, and camera isn't really picking it up very well, but I promise you I could see it in real life. I used red instead of the black because red will be easier to cover with the light tones that I'm using for the nose and the mouth. Now I have finally decided on the color I want to use for the nose, and I'm taking small amount of it. It doesn't matter if it's wool tops or carded wool, you need tiny amount, and I suggest you rolling it between your fingers and folding it over multiple times. Now I'm focusing only on the top part of the small piece of the wool. This will help you to create the approximate shape that I have intended in my sketch for the nose. Of course, you can also create your own designs with unique nose shapes. Here I'm anchoring the wool down, starting with the top part of the nose and moving lower. And you can double check the placement at any moment. I like to do it after the first couple of stabs, because during this stage I'm still able to remove everything. At first I wanted to use this very bright pink for the mouth, and I rolled small amount between my fingers and simply felted it down in place where the mouth should be. As I already mentioned, I'm not really worried about this shape because it will be partially covered by mustache. However, after felting it down, this color did start to worry me, so I decided to go over it using a little bit darker red. I think this suits the overall color scheme way better. Now it's time to add the eyes. Of course, you can use nose as a guideline and try to match the placement of the eyes on both sides, but I will go a different route. I'm folding my template once again, so I'm able to cut out the eye shapes with simply cutting out half circle. I first tried to use my embroidery scissors for this, but they are not very well suited for round shapes, so you will see me switching them out. And now I will show you the second approach you can use with these cutout templates. You have to again align it carefully with your already felted image. Then I'm taking small amount of white wool, and here you really have to use tiny amount. I'm rolling it between my fingers to create a little wool ball, and I'm creating little wool balls for both of the eyes at the same time, so I can double check that I'm using approximately the same amount for both of them. And here is how I'm doing it. I'm once again double checking that the template is aligned perfectly, and I'm using my left hand to hold it in place. It's always a good idea. I'm taking my white wool ball and I'm felting it through the little cutout I have created. I try to be as precise as possible and avoid hitting the paper. It's not going to be the end of the world if you do hit the paper, but trying to stick with the cutout shapes is the best approach here that will give you the best results. And I'm felting down the other eye before I'm removing the template. This way I I'm not risking accidentally changing the alignment and having my eyes misplaced. I will now remove the template and double check the shape. I want my eyes to be super rounded, so I will spend some time guiding the wool towards the center. You can see that I'm using the direction of my needle to do so, and remember that you can always turn your piece around to have better access. Other than that, there isn't anything special here. I'm just trying to make the eyes flat and round before moving on to the next step. And the next step will be super simple. I'm taking a couple of strands of black wool, super tiny amount, and I'm rolling it between my fingers for quite a while to create the pupil of the eye. Then I felt it down and repeat the process for the other eye. I'm using black for the eyebrows, and the process is very similar to the one we used for the nose. This time we are just using less wool. As the eyebrows are super tiny, any amount of wool you take will feel a bit too much. So don't be afraid to use your scissors. The red cheeks are optional, but I do think they add a nice touch. And to create them, I don't even have to use the template. This time, my needle is guiding the wool, so I'm keeping my pokes in the area where I want the redness to be. I'm creating a little circle with my pokes. And the more I felt here, the more red I will have, because the fiber will tangle to this specific place. If I feel that that's enough, I can cut off the excess fluff using my scissors. And if I want to add more, I will simply layer on another piece of wool and keep my pokes in the same place. This will add more fiber in this area and make the color more intense. I'm going to use wool locks to create mustache and hair. We are going to need super tiny amount, but if you do not have wool locks, remember that you can create them using wool tops. I will link a video explaining this process in the description box below. Here I have finally decided on the color I want to use. Now I have to find two curls that are right next to each other and in the same size. This will help me to create symmetrical looking mustache. Once found, I'm cutting this piece off and twisting it a bit to enhance the curls before I'm felting it down. I'm starting with the middle section to anchor everything in place, and then I'm going to move to the sides, but there I'm using only a couple of stabs to lightly anchor everything in place without losing the volume. I'm using the scissors to thin out the ends, and I can manipulate the shape with my fingers quite well before anchoring the end bit down too. I decided to finalize the jacket by adding some accessories and details there before adding the hair. I think it's just easier because my piece is quite flat still and I have a lot of place where to move my hands around. First, I'm adding some red ropes on both shoulders. I use the same red as before in the hat, so I think it ties in nicely. And I'm not trying to be super precise here, so I'm just freehanding the ropes using similar approach as we used in the hat. And now it's time for the final details for the jacket. I will create 2 horizontal lines in front of the jacket like this. First, I'm anchoring one of the ends and then simply stretching the wool across the front of the jacket to make a straight line. I'm folding over the excess to make the line thicker and cutting off everything I do not need. When both lines are ready, I'm adding tiny gold buttons. As you can see, I'm simply rolling the wool between my fingers to create a tiny ball and felting it down. Now it's the fun part, adding the locks. Process is quite simple. You just have to take your locks and choose the ones you like the most. You can try them on like this using your fingers to decide on how voluminous or simple you want the hairstyle to be. I'm using scissors to cut up my locks, and just a reminder, it's usually not a good idea to pull your locks apart because this will definitely ruin the curl. So handle them with care and use your scissors. I'm using single 38 gauge needle to needle felt the locks down. I will not needle felt the whole fiber. I'm just focusing on anchoring sections piece by piece so I can save some of the volume. As you can see, I'm leaving the curls that are sticking out voluminous and I'm not trying to poke them down. I also focus on the sections around the face because I don't want to cover too much of the facial features. You can lightly tuck and pull on the locks too to change the shape of the hairstyle. And here he is all finished. Before moving on to adding our image to the card, I wanted to share with you a couple of design ideas that can be created using the same template and same techniques we used today. So here is more princessy version. I used pastel colors for this and added a little bit different detail to the jacket and to the hat. All can be created using the same approach we used today, just the placement of the elements changes a little bit. And here is another version, a bit darker this time, because I wanted to use the black locs I have. And again, elements are very simple, but my nutcrackers look completely different from each other. So don't be afraid to use your own imagination and create your unique nutcrackers. I love to use these little cards with a window. They have 3 sections. One of them covers the backing of your felt art. And I have used a painter's tape to stick my art in here, just in case someone wants to remove it and frame it later on. This is a great hack. I will use double-sided tape there to close this section up so it's nice and neat. My only suggestion would be to double check the size of the window always. In this case, we do have some empty space around the nutcrackers, so it's not that big of a deal. But even though I do purchase these cards from the same seller every time, the size of the window does change slightly. So it's always best to double check it before printing out your template, if you're using my template, for example, or even if you're drawing it yourself. Just make sure that you will fit the whole nutcracker inside this little window and it's not too big. Let me know in the comments how you liked today's tutorial. Did you learn anything new, and will you try these little nutcracker cards yourself? Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks for felting with me today, and see you in my next one.